The Grizzlies have found themselves in a very weird spot. They've clearly got tons of talent and they're clearly committed to this core with the moves they've made, but due to injuries, limitations, and everything in between, they've never been able to reach that next level. With a retooled roster for 2026 though, what can we expect? Are they good enough to compete in the West? And what can we make of their future? Last season, the Grizzlies were one of only 5 teams to have both a top 10 offense and defense, but because of how stacked the West was, that was only good enough for an 8th seed. On defense, it was the same thing we'd been seeing from Memphis for years. The roster did seriously lack versatile wings, but they still had a really good interior defense between Jaren Jackson playing free safety and Zach Edey's presence in the middle. With that, they like to bring aggressive pressure to the ball. Rookie Jalen Wells was their primary guy in the starting lineup, and off the bench, Scottie Pippen Jr. would hound opposing guards at the point of attack. The bigger story though was their revamped offensive system. They made a clear point of emphasis to play on the open floor as much as possible, and that resulted in the league's #1 transition offense. Not only did guys like Ja and Bane do a great job of running the show, the team was stacked with a ridiculous amount of depth in terms of playable NBA players, so they always had fresh legs to come in and run. That run and gun style of offense was also their approach in the half court. They'd get into possessions quickly, look to create an early isolation, and drive and kick until they found a shot or a mismatch that they wanted. Which was really interesting because for years, their system had been built on a heavy diet of spread pick and roll with the ball in Ja's hands, only for them to completely abandon ball screens altogether. They had the ball handlers to create dribble penetration, the shooters to take advantage, and the isolation play of Jaren Jackson Jr. as he took a serious step forward. However, that reliance on playing with pace against an unset defense became a problem in the playoffs, because they ran into OKC, who completely took away the transition game. Then in the half court, they didn't really have any mismatches for Jaren to attack one-on-one, so all of their go-to outlets got taken away. As a result, the offense completely collapsed, not really creating advantages, turning the ball over a lot, and they ended up getting swept in the first round. Unfortunately, this summer was riddled with injuries. Zach Edey hurt his ankle and could miss at least the first 2 months of the season. Jaren Jackson Jr. hurt his toe and he might miss a few games, while Brandon Clark underwent a procedure on his knee and it's unsure if he'll even be back for the season at all. So there's a chance that any semblance of a vertical presence or interior defense doesn't exist in a lot of lineups, especially during those first couple of months. Santi Aldama's a 7-footer, but he operates more like a forward or even a wing, especially on defense. He's light on his feet, has good length, but isn't by any means a primary rim protector or rebounder. That leaves them with 2 options. They could go small with Aldama or one of their wings at the 5, or they could lean into one of their offseason acquisitions to hold down the middle. Those being Jock Landale, undrafted rookie Lawson Lovering, or second-year big PJ Hall. Unless one of the young guys pans out in a majorly unexpected way, it looks like they're going to be rocking with Landale. He can't switch, struggles to defend pick and roll, and isn't a rim protector, so the defense could be at a major disadvantage. However, what he can do is operate in the pick and roll on offense. He's not a lob threat or really even much of an interior scorer at all. He sets good screens, he rolls hard, and has the touch to score from the short mid-range, which is all Ja needs to unleash his game as a downhill creator. Before we get into that, I want to give a huge shout out to Factor for sponsoring this video because this 31-day video series wouldn't be possible without them. Between the time it takes to research each team and produce these videos while balancing my personal life, I just don't have time to cook for myself. If you find yourself in a similar situation, whether it be work, kids, or relationships, Factor gives you the option of a quick, easy to prepare, and fresh meal that meets your fitness goals. All you have to do is choose your chef-crafted meal from the fridge and pop it in the microwave for 2 minutes. Recently, they've doubled the size of their menu to 80+ rotating weekly meals, so whether you're craving a steak, a chicken breast, a calorie smart, or vegan option, Factor makes it easier than ever to eat clean. For me personally, it's bulk season, so I've been loving their Protein Plus options. But no matter who you are, Factor makes it so easy to fit a healthy lifestyle into your daily routine, and that's why I'm super excited to bring you guys a special offer. Head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code HoopVenueFB50 to get 50% off plus free breakfast for a year. You heard that right, that's code HoopVenueFB50 at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for a year. The Ja Morant variable is really interesting. Like I said, last season they went away from his game as a pick and roll ball handler. In every year of his career, he'd been good for anywhere from 18 to 20 pick and rolls a game. Well, that number dropped all the way to 12, which wasn't even in the top 25. It's weird because he's clearly at his best in the pick and roll, using his tight handle, change of direction, and pace to carve out space off of screens as he works his way to the paint and pressures defenses as both a scoring and passing threat. By eliminating that part of his game, he individually wasn't producing up to par. The name of Ja's game is volume shot creation. He was scoring less, getting to the rim and the line less, taking more threes, and had lower assist numbers while turning it over more. Some of this might be regression from the injuries or not progressing his scoring game outside of the paint much, but there's some reason to believe he still has that previous gear. Remember, the Grizzlies fired Taylor Jenkins less than a month before the playoffs, and it was a tiny sample with Tomas Isolo at the helm, but in the following 7 games, they got back to running more pick and roll, as Ja averaged nearly 16 of those plays. Over that span, his scoring jumped to over 30 points every 75 possessions on an efficient 58.5% true shooting, so clearly Ja can still ramp up his volume. I say all that because with the potential loss of Jaren to start the season, as well as the loss of Desmond Bane over the offseason, the offense should be a lot more Ja-centric, meaning lots of spread pick and roll in the half court. And my question is, what exactly does that look like? Let's assume Ja's able to round back into peak form. One big difference is that Memphis just lost 2 of the best shooters in the NBA. Over the last 3 seasons, Desmond Bane made about 42% of his catch and shoot threes, and he's versatile. He can hit off of movement, in transition, from extended range, over contests. Luke Kennard has been the single most reliable spot-up shooter of the decade, hitting nearly 50% of his catch and shoot threes in the last 3 seasons. Moving forward, defenses should be able to shrink the floor a lot more against Ja's slashing game unless the Grizzlies are able to find better shooting on the wings. The remainder of their roster is filled with a bunch of middling shooters who aren't afraid to take the open 3, but haven't proven to hit them at a consistent enough clip to demand respect from opposing defenses, especially in the playoffs. The one thing I will say though is that it's not like they weren't able to replace Bane or Kennard at all, because over the summer they brought in Ty Jerome and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Those 2 are reliable spot-up shooters, each hitting over 40% of their catch-and-shoot threes in the last 3 seasons. So while they aren't necessarily elite, the Grizzlies did get some of that spacing back, and more importantly, they offer unique skills that the team didn't have before. KCP is probably going to start at the 2, and he fits Memphis' style of defense. I mentioned earlier that they like to pressure the ball. KCP's got the motor, foot speed, and length to smother initiators at the point of attack. They also like to play drop coverage, which requires good screen navigation, and he's one of the best in the league at this particular skill, which allows bigs like Edey and Jaren to do what they do best in the paint. When it comes to point of attack resistance, Memphis is set. Between KCP and Wells, they'll be starting and closing games with versatile defensive wings. Then off the bench, they've still got Scottie Pippen Jr. to deal with guards, while Vince Williams can step into any lineup as a sort of defensive specialist. As for Ty Jerome, he'll probably be the first or second guy off the bench, and he's there to provide an offensive boost. We've already seen that he can play off of other ball handlers. He's got great instincts for moving without the ball, he's a good shooter, but more importantly, he's a lightning quick decision maker and phenomenal extra passer. The big thing with Jerome though is what he offers as a secondary ball handler. While Bane was a really great scorer who could seamlessly play off of Ja or increase his duties when needed, he wasn't the best ball handler or passer, which meant he wasn't the type to really organize an offense. The last time the Grizzlies had that consistently was when they had Tyus Jones as a backup because of his ability to set the table without making errors. I like to think of Jerome as a sort of fusion between the 2. Obviously, he's not the slasher or off-ball shooter that Bane is. What he is a really good pull-up 3-point shooter and crafty driver who's got elite touch from floater range, knows how to draw fouls, and like Jones, has a secure handle, good passing vision, while basically never turning the ball over. All things considered, he's the secondary ball handler Ja never had. He can legitimately run an offense in spurts because of how good he is at operating out of pick and roll. Last season, he was one of 64 players to average at least 8 pick and roll possessions a game. On those plays, the Cavs scored 1.11 points, which was the 6th most efficient of that group and ahead of names like Luka Doncic, Jalen Brunson, or Trae Young. Not that he's a better pick and roll ball handler than them, just that he's very efficient, which not only provides a second look next to Ja, it also provides a presence with the bench unit. Which takes me back to the offensive system, because between their 2 point guards, we should be seeing a lot more pick and roll. With that said though, the problem is that neither are capable point of attack defenders, which takes me to the main issue with this roster, the lack of two-way lineup versatility. The starting 5 is nasty on defense, although they're sort of forced to play one brand of basketball due to the limited foot speed of Edey. They even have some nice defensive pieces off the bench, but in most lineups, it feels like they're forced to choose between having offensive or defensive talent on the court while sacrificing the other. The only way I can see this changing right now is if rookie Cedric Coward turns out to be an immediate impact player, because he projects as a 3-and-D wing who can handle the ball and pass, which feels like exactly what this group needs. However, they're also missing a reliable isolation creator. Jaren often relies on mismatches, and we saw how that went when OKC didn't have any. Whereas Ja and Jerome typically need screens to create advantages in the half court. That's why I personally thought they were a prime destination for Kevin Durant, which would also fix some of the lineup issues. A couple things could still swing in the right direction for them though, like the flashes we've seen from Gigi Jackson or Cam Spencer. But it still feels like they're going into this season with a few missing pieces. When healthy, they've got size and length, lots of on-ball defense, and lots of playable NBA players. That sounds like a 50-win recipe in the regular season. Versatility is the name of the game in the playoffs though, and they don't really have it on either side of the ball. Some of that stems from a lack of wings, but it also stems from the fact that Jaren's a bit of a tweener with limitations at both the 4 and the 5. Their ceiling is really limited on offense, and while they have the roots of an elite defense, they're still lacking in a few areas while being forced to play multiple weak links in order for the offense to function. Originally, I had them as a 45 or 46 win team, but they could have a rough start to the season without some of their bigs, and along with other injury concerns with how stacked the conference is, I wouldn't be surprised to see them slip below 500. Come playoff time, they're limited, and I just don't see much of a pathway for them to make the second round. With all of that said though, there's still a really nice young core in place. Maybe there's a potential leap for Gigi Jackson, Jalen Wells, or Zach Edey. Maybe the newly acquired Omax Prosper proves to be a missing piece. Maybe rookie Cedric Howard proves to have another gear as a creator. Keep in mind their two best players are 26 years old, so it's not like they're scrambling to operate on a short timeline. Although, I must say, if they run into some bad injury luck and things go south, the front office might feel compelled to take some drastic measures. So as things currently stand, we could either be looking at the last year of Grizzlies basketball as we know it, or the start of a beautiful new beginning.